It is the evening of March the 3rd, 2022. The defendant, Kouri Richins, her husband, Eric Richins, and their 3 children, 9-year-old Carter, 7-year-old Ashton, and 5-year-old Weston, are at their home in Camas. Eric Richins lived for his 3 boys. At 7:22 p.m., Kouri Richins' boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, texts Kouri Richins an image of 2 people romantically kissing. The image is captioned, "Love you." At 8:36, Kouri Richins replies, "Love you." The boys go to bed. Kouri Richins makes Eric a drink and takes it to him in their bedroom. He drinks on the bed. She departs the bedroom. Kouri Richins returns to the bedroom at about 3:00 a.m. She feels that Eric is cold. She nudges him. He does not respond. She sees that he is stiff and pale. His mouth is wide open. At 3:06 a.m., Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone. She travels 243 feet beginning at 3:08 a.m. She unlocks her cell phone again at 3:10, 3:15, and twice at 3:19. At 3:21, Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone and calls 911. Paramedics respond, but they are unable to revive Eric. He has no pulse. He is cold. They pronounce him dead at 3:58 a.m. on March the 4th, but they think he has been dead a while. My name again is Brad Bloodworth. I am one of Summit County's criminal prosecutors who, along with Lindsay Shervinack and Fred Burmester, will present to you the state of Utah's aggravated murder case against Kouri Darden Richins for causing the poisoning death of her husband and the father of her 3 children, Eric Richins. The state will also prove to you that 2 weeks before murdering Eric Richins, Kouri Richins attempted to murder him. And 2 weeks before that, by fraud and forgery, she took out an insurance policy on his life.
Objection, can we approach?
Weeks before attempting to murder Eric Richins, Kouri Richins took out an insurance policy by fraud and forgery on Eric's life. And 2 weeks after Eric died, she submitted a fraudulent claim on yet another insurance policy. In this opening statement, I will summarize for you some of the evidence that the state will present over the next few days, perhaps weeks, so that you have a framework to assemble and analyze all of the evidence. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life. More than anything, She wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success. Kouri Richins owned a house flipping business. She would purchase, rehab, and resell homes. She presented herself to friends and business associates as remarkably successful. The evidence will prove that on the day that Eric died, Kouri Richins owed over $4.5 million to over 20 different lenders. And she did not have the ability to service that debt because her bank accounts were exhausted and her credit was exhausted. She had been taking out new loans to include payday loans to service existing loans, but her new credit was drying up. In the 5 months leading to Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins overdrafted over 200 transactions, totaling over $300,000. And on the day that Eric died, Kouri Richins was scheduled to close on an unfinished and derelict mansion in Midway, and thus take on an additional $3.2 million in debt. She did not have the financial ability to service that debt, to rehab the mansion, or to hold on to it long enough to resell it. The mansion may appear impressive from a distance, but upon close inspection, it is just a facade. On the other hand, on the day that Eric died, his estate was worth over $4 million. And the evidence will prove that Kouri Richins believed she would inherit it all. She believed that she would inherit Eric's $2 million interest in a stonemasonry business, an interest that a prenuptial agreement prevented her from getting any part of if they divorced, but permitted her to get all of if Eric died while they were married. She believed that she would inherit the $1 million or so dollar home that they lived in, but that Eric owned separate and apart from her. And she believed that she would benefit from nearly $2 million in insurance on Eric's life, to include the $100,000 policy that she took out a few weeks before he died. Now, for Kouri Richins' fresh start at life motive. This motive overlaps with her money motive. She needed Eric Richins' money to get her fresh start at life. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins was chronically unhappy in her marriage. She thought that having children would make her happier, but it did not. She consulted with a divorce attorney in the months leading up to Eric's death. 3 months before Eric's death, Kouri Richins booked a $4,000, 5-night, all-inclusive vacation for her and her boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, at the Secrets St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean. They were to check in the month after Eric died. Three weeks before Eric's death, 15 days before Eric's death, one day before the charge, attempted murder, Kouri Richins text messaged Josh Grossman, "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you. Watch a murder documentary and snuggle." Five days after the charged attempted murder and 11 days before the charged murder, Kouri Richins text messaged Josh Grossman, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If he could just go away. And you could just be here. Life would be so perfect. I love you. I don't know what my deal is today. I'm sorry." 9 days after the charged attempted murder, 1 week before the charged murder, Kouri Richins text messaged her boyfriend, "I have a crazy dream. You quit your job. I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road, maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. And we will just run the event center as our daily job and hang out every day, raise some kids, have a little farm. Deal?" Just over 2 weeks after Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins text messaged her boyfriend a link to the secret St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean and asked, "Are we there yet?" One month and 5 days after Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins texted, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Now for the attempted murder charge. Carmen Lauber was a house cleaner who worked for Kouri Richins' aunt's house cleaning company. She cleaned Kouri Richins' house. She knew Kouri Richins for nearly 9 years. Kouri Richins knew that Carmen Lauber had a criminal history involving drugs. The evidence will prove that on February the 11th, 2022, 3 days before the charged attempted murder, Carmen Lauber, at Kouri Richins' request, purchased illicit pills from a street drug dealer who was a friend of a friend. And she gave those pills to Kouri Richins. That street dealer's name is Robert Crozier, and he sold Carmen Lauber the pills at a draper in Maverick. 3 days later, on Valentine's Day, Kouri Richins purchased a sandwich from the Mirror Lake Diner and left it for Eric Richins. She then departed Camas and met up with Josh Grossman an hour away. At 11:33 that morning, Eric texted Kouri Richins, "I'm going to lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm going to head to the hospital soon." Shortly thereafter, all activity on Eric's cell phone ceased. for nearly 90 minutes in the middle of a busy workday. Once activity resumed, Eric Richins called his two best friends. They sounded to him scared, somber, confused, bewildered. A few days after that, Kouri Richins asked Carmen Lauber if she could get something stronger. The evidence will prove that on February the 26th, 5 or 6 days before Eric's death, Carmen Lauber, again at Kouri Richins' request, purchased pills from the same street dealer at the same Maverick in Draper. And she left those pills at a home that Kouri Richins was just finishing up a rehab on. The evidence will prove that those illicit pills contained fentanyl. The autopsy and toxicology report shows that Eric Richins died of fentanyl poisoning. He had several times a lethal amount of fentanyl in his blood and more in his stomach. And that extraordinary amount of fentanyl was intentional, not accidental. The evidence will prove that time and again, Kouri Richins tried to cover up her attempted murder and ultimate murder of Eric Richins. When confronted with Eric's reaction on Valentine's Day, Kouri Richins text messaged her friend. It was Valentine's Day, and Eric and I were both working from home that day, and I ordered lunch from Mirror Lake. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was fucking with him. Bailey was there too. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to nap. No hives, no EpiPen. Kouri Richins was an hour away from Eric Richins with her boyfriend. Regarding the morning of Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins wrote in a notebook that she entered their room at 3:20 a.m. She saw that when she nudged Eric, nothing happened. She grabbed her phone and called 911. She first grabbed her phone at least 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 at least 15 minutes. The evidence will also prove that Kouri Richins had a guilty conscience. The morning that Eric died, his family came over. Kouri Richins could not face her children or Eric's dad, Eric Richins. She didn't speak to him. A few days after Eric's death, Kouri Richins and her boyfriend, Josh, they drove into the Uintas and talked about Eric's death for the first time. Kouri Richins asked Josh, while serving in Iraq, did you ever kill anyone? When he responded, she asked, how did that make you feel? along the lines of both cover-up and guilty conscience, Kouri Richins' text messages and other data from Kouri Richins' phone for the 2 months leading up to Eric Richins' death and a week or two after have all been deleted. Police seized that phone. She got a new phone. And on that new phone, there were the following internet searches. Can cops uncover deleted messages iPhone? Can you delete everything off an old iPhone without actually having it? Can deleted text messages be retrieved from an iPhone? How to completely wipe an iPhone clear remotely? How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely? On April the 13th, 2022, about 5 weeks after Eric Richins' death, detectives informed Kouri Richins that the autopsy and toxicology results show that Eric died of fentanyl poisoning. Thereafter, searches on her phone include if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Women, Utah prison, luxury prisons for the rich in America. Almost a year after Eric Richins' death, when Kouri Richins knew the police were investigating her for his death, Kouri Richins published a children's book on how to deal with the loss of a parent. And she promoted that children's book on local television and local radio. The state will present to you this evidence and more through a series of fact witnesses, expert witnesses, documents, and Kouri Richins' own words. As you evaluate the evidence and you consider it and you weigh it, let me offer 4 recommendations. The first is the evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric Richins, but also consider the evidence that proves that Eric Richins did not kill himself or die accidentally. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins had the means, motive, and opportunity to murder Eric Richins. But please consider the evidence that proves no one else did. Consider the evidence leading up to Eric Richins' death that proves that Kouri Richins murdered him, but also consider the evidence after Eric's death that also proves it. As you evaluate Kouri Richins' conduct, consider the evidence that proves that she richly values and trades on her perceived appearance, affluence, privilege, and success. Let me please highlight two of the judge's instructions that he just provided. The first is stay focused on the evidence. What the attorneys say, how they say it, their voice inflection, none of that is evidence. Please stay focused on the evidence. Please take notes. As he said, you will probably only hear from a witness one time, and that is when the witness testifies. At the end of the trial, I'll stand back up here. And in closing argument, we will analyze the evidence. We will apply it to the elements that the judge instructed you on. And the state of Utah will ask you to find Kouri Richins guilty of the aggravated murder of Eric Richins, the attempted aggravated murder of Eric Richins, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and forgery. Back for a moment to the morning of March the 4th, 2022. It is 8:30. Medical examiners place Eric's body in a body bag onto a stretcher, and they wheel him out of his home for the last time. His boys are upstairs with their uncle. Kouri Richins has not yet told them that Eric is dead, and she won't for a few more hours. The last of the sheriff's deputies leave, crime scene techs, medical examiners. And on Kouri Richins' phone, the following 3 images are accessed.